thank you for your cooperation and consideration.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the guest lecture series on SDGs today, Thursday, March the 10th, 2022. I am Nabila from ITS Global Engagement, and I will be your master of ceremony and moderator this afternoon. Thank you for joining our guest lecture series on Sustainable Development Goals today. Before we start our agenda, let me inform you of some rules for the event. First, please adjust your name or ID screen using format name_campus. Second, during the lecture, please turn off your microphone and only turn on the microphone when the moderator gives the chance. Third, please fill your attendance through the link that's shared in the Zoom chat room. For participants who wish to get an e-certificate and stamp, please fill the attendance 15 minutes after the session starts. Fourth, participants who wish to ask questions during the Q&A session, please send your question to the link bit.ly/GLS_Q&A_2, and the link will be listed in the Zoom chat room as well. Or you can ask directly by using the raise hand feature, and then we call you. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm so glad to welcome you all in this beautiful afternoon at the GLS on SDGs. Today's GLS on SDGs will bring about 2 sustainable development goals, which are goal number 5 about gender equality, and also goal number 10 about reduced inequalities. So related to these 2 goals, I would like to say Happy International Women's Day to all wonderful ladies here and also to the brilliant gentlemen here. Let's embrace the special celebration in this event to support equality in all aspects in our community. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will discuss about gender as a social and cultural construct that will be delivered by Dr. Tania Islam from the University of Malaya. After that, we will have another session as interesting, entitled Social and Political Marginalization of Civil Society Groups, the Philippines Experience, by Dr. Jonel Lanada from West Visayas State University. Dr. Tanya, Dr. Jonel, and all participants allow me to also become the moderator of today's lectures. And before we start our agenda, allow me to deliver our schedule today as follows. First, opening and introduction to the speaker. Second, the lecture session. Third, the Q&A session. Fourth, certificate awarding. And the fifth, closing and also group photo session. Now, before we proceed to the next agenda, let me introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker today is Dr. Tania Islam for University of Malaya. He got her PhD in Public Health and Community Medicine from Nagoya University, Japan. And she is also a research associate in Public Health at Nagoya City University. Dr. Tanya is a senior and lecturer in Department of Surgery, University of Malaya. And she also has experience in postdoctoral research fellow in high impact research grant at University of Malaya. Dr. Tanya is also research advisory committee member, a life member of Public Health Association of Bangladesh, and also a life member of Bangladesh Medical and Dental Association. You can see she have a wonderful profile here. And I hope that all of you can grasp more knowledge she's about to deliver today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please be prepared on your notes as I will welcome Dr. Tanya to deliver the lecture. So, without further ado, let's proceed to the main agenda. For Dr. Tanya, the time is yours.
Thank you, Nabila. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah, I first share my slide as well. Can see my slide?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to wish you all, the ladies, Happy Women's Day. Let's break the bias. I think the GLS has intentionally or unintentionally invited two speakers to make it like gender equal, me and other speaker, Dr. Noel. And that's how it looks like there is gender equality. And I really want to thank the Institute Technology September, November, for inviting me here. So today I'm going to talk about gender as a social and cultural construct, and also how it actually impacts to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So before we start, we need to know what actually gender is. We actually know two kind of things. One is sex and one is gender. We normally mix up the two things and feel like it's the same thing. But sex is actually the biological character of a human being. When they are born, their sex is decided according to the criteria, biological characteristics. And gender is actually sociological category. So if we want to divide, or if we want to know the difference between sex and gender, it's like sex is actually the biological character, like the male will have the male genital organ like penis, and the female will have the female genital organ like uterus, ovary, those things which are universal all over the world. There is no change, like different country will have different thing for this sex. But whereas gender is actually socially constructed roles that are responsibilities and behavior of the person, and it actually tell us like where it actually tell us what society and culture teach us. The behavior we learn from the society, from our country, and from the surrounding. That's what is gender. And then, as I mentioned before, the sex is universal. It doesn't vary all over the world. But whereas gender actually varies, gender related things like the elements related to gender within or outside may be vary. Maybe the responsibility of the male and female is different in different countries. Like in the South, in the Africa, the thing people does, male or female duty or thing they doesn't match with the Western population. Okay, and then sex actually what we are born with, but gender is the learned behavior, what we learn from our society. And then generally the sex never changes until recently. There are something like sex can be changed surgically by operation, can be done. That's different thing. But actually, for gender, it's changed over time. Different gender behavior related to that maybe change. Like before, there were very less women in the different sector sector of job leadership, but currently there are more increasing. That's one of the characteristics of the gender. And then, as I mentioned, it doesn't vary at all, but gender always vary within the culture, and it's changing, keep changing. So the thing is, it's nature versus nurture. The sex is what we got from the nature as we born, and what we nurture in our society, in our family, in our culture, that is gender. If we stratify gender more, Then the sex comes first, the genetic definition, and determines the role in reproduction. But gender is the sociological distinction between male and female. And gender identifies one's self-concept of being male and being female. And the gender role also comes out from the cultural expectation about the behavior of each sex. As you can see the picture, once the baby is actually born, we see only the sex of the babies. But what we do, we name the babies according to male and female, and then we put the colors on them, like we like to put more pink cloth or something like that, baby's cloth, who are female, and male more like to be blue or something like that. And the toys are different, something like that. So it's just after birth, the family and the society actually differentiate between male and female and create the gender. So the gender is actually social construct that is determined by culture and society. And this includes the norms, behavior, and roles associated with being a woman, man, girl, or a boy, as well as relationship with each other. So you can see in the picture, this is a man and a woman. So this is masculine and feminine. But when a man and woman are, for the profession, we call them doctor, their work is same for man and woman, doesn't vary. Okay, that's what is neuter. And like if the chicken is male, so rooster and the hen. But when we neuter, we just call it chicken. So the characteristics is same. So this is the sex gender we are differentiating. The ideology of gender determines actually what is expected for us. Once we are born, what as a man or as a boy or a girl, what we are supposed to do. As a female, maybe we are need to take care of the family. We need to take care of the children. We need to do the household work more than the men. And what is allowed for us? Suppose we are allowed to some region of the world, like some female or girls don't allow to go out that much like the boys. Or what is valued in us? Like for women, always like they are mother. They are going to be mother. They need to be more more sacrificing tendency like that. So actually the ideology of gender is putting in our head what we are supposed to do in our whole life. And that's what
excuse me, Dr. Tania.
Yes.
Are you still in the first slide? Because your slide is not moving.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you see now? Because
it's not. It's in the Microsoft PowerPoint, but not in a full screen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In my hair, it's moving. That's why I'm confused. Maybe I stop share and do it again.
Yeah, please.
Sorry for the. Can you see it now?
Yes, it's in a full screen now.
Is it moving now?
Yes, doctor. You may continue your lecture.
Sorry about that, because I didn't realize here it's moving actually. So should I repeat it again? Or actually my second slide was concept of gender like this. Can you see all now?
Yes, we can see it, doctor.
Yes.
Or maybe if you can give a brief overview from this slide again.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, the sex is the biological character and gender is the sociological category of the person. It's actually nature versus nurture. when we born in the nature, it is our sex. It is how we are born in the society. That is our sex. It doesn't vary. It's universal all over the world. Like the male sex organ and female sex organ, wherever you go, it's same. But gender is different thing. Gender is vary, and factors beside the gender actually vary different country to different country, and it's a socio-cultural impact on the people. And normally sex cannot be changed, but gender can be. But nowadays it can be changed. Like if you do the surgery, you can change. But gender does normally gender change according to the society, because the different society, like in society, the gender characteristics of the African differ from the Western country. And then actually, if we stratify further the gender, the sex is the genetic definition and determines the role in reproduction. It is the first step of the gender. And then the gender is sociological distinction between male and female. And gender identity is one's self-concept of being male and female. That means what actually our society introduced in our head. Okay, what we learn from our culture, the behavior we learn from the culture, that is making me like, okay, I am a woman, I was a girl, and then I am a woman, I need to do this, I need to do that, I have to follow those rituals, something like that. Okay, and that's how the gender roles, like the cultural expectation about behavior of each sex. When actually the baby is born, it is only the sex, the character of the babies. But once the baby is born, parents name it. You can see the baby wrapped in the pink cloth, and the baby male boy is wrapped in the blue one. We are the one who decide the different name according to the gender, and then we give the different type of toys, we do it. So it actually continues until the puberty. Sex doesn't play anything. Once the sexual character again change, only that time the sex again comes. By this time, actually the babies learn their way of the behavior, and they just go in the gender, like they are boy or girl, and later they will be male, man and woman. Can see now, right? So the gender is a social construct that is determined by culture and society. And this includes norms, behavior, roles associated with being a woman, man, girl, or a boy, as well as relationship with each other. You can see the picture here. There is a man and woman. This is our gender distinction. But when we call them by the profession as a doctor, there is no difference between them. The doctor work is same for male and female, so it doesn't have any change. But when we see the man and woman, we see different things. Okay, we expect different things. The ideology of gender actually determines in our society what we are expected to do, what is allowed for us, and what is valued in us. The nature, okay, if you are a boy, you cannot cry. You should be tough one. You cannot, if you cry, you are a girl, something like that. So these are the values and expected work from us. They are putting in our head and making us boy and a girl. And by the time we grow up, actually we get the idea like, okay, I am a girl, I need to do this. I cannot go out at night that time. I need to do that. When I will grow up, I need to take care of my family. I need to sacrifice my life more as a female, something like that. So the nature and extent of this gender ideology actually putting the disadvantages and disparity and discrimination in our society. So if I say further, the concept of gender is actually a social construct referring to complex relationship between women and men in specific socio-cultural contexts. Okay, so the social and cultural context is making the gender. It's actually made by the society and individual. How in the society, the individual, family, and household is one of the basic social institutes that could generate gender in our head. Once we born, just now I mentioned this thing, we need to do that thing. So it's putting in our head. And then later when we grow up, gendering is carried forward and manifested and reproduced in variety of institution or organization. Like I'm going to school and then college, that is male, female, the division, what we are supposed to do, what we are supposed to wear, the uniform, everything is differentiating us. And then when we are in job, everything is differentiating, like I am a man and other is a woman, something like that. And individual also grow the gender things, like masculine and feminine are mode of consciousness and ways of experiencing life. As I mentioned, when just after birth, a few days when the baby learn what he or she is, they just adopt the thing from the society, from their culture. And they grow the thing in their mind and body as well, like, okay, I'm a boy or a girl, something like that. And the balancing feminine and masculine within the personality offers choice to realize their full human potential, like how they actually later on grow up. Okay. So how gender inequality comes to our society actually. As I mentioned, gender is actually a hierarchical and produce inequality that intersect with other social and economic inequalities. Okay, this is a system how gender inequality actually goes, first dividing the gender and then the inequality developed in our society, in all over the world. So the gender-based discrimination intersect with each other for discrimination, such as like gender with the ethnicity, social relationship, wealth, then the geographical area, class, sex, everything. This is actually called intersectionality. Okay. Gender role, how it actually decided. Gender role are normally affected by age. What age, what I'm supposed to do, what age I'm supposed to play, or I'm supposed to go for education, or I am supposed to have retirement, the class, upper class, lower class, everything, the gender has some effect. And then the race and the religion and ideology actually have great impact on our gender, like how we are going to behave later on. And then the geographical, economical, and political environment also have great impact on our gender roles. But if we see all over the world, the gender roles, is some part of the world, maybe it's flexible, it may be rigid, or maybe similar or different, or maybe complementary or conflicting with each other, we can see. Then if we want to know that who is to blame for the creation and recreation of these gender inequalities, okay, there are many theories in the sociology. One of the best one is the life force theory by Glenn Elzar. He said, like, the creation of gender inequality is the subtle, lifelong, and partly unconscious process, which is fueled, among others, by implicit cognition about the role of men and women in a society and generate stereotypical picture. So it's orthodox thing actually grown up at the later. And according to this theory, the disadvantaged position of the woman should be understood as the outcome of the lifelong process and an interplay between the individual preference and resources, the lives of other people to whom they are linked, the timing of decision norms, and other things. Actually, that's how, like, female were more. Some of the theories said that female were more weak And that's how the society has taken the thing like, okay, male should be bread earner, female should be take care of the children, the elderly people, others do the household chores like that. So that's how actually the society and our culture, everything is creating and recreating these gender inequalities in our life. So hope you understand the gender thing a bit clear. So now I will move to the gender equality, which is the one of the 17 SDG goals. Empower the girl and women in our society. Actually, it has a monitoring framework that is that's at the two that has actually 9 targets and 14 indicators. Among the target 1 is end discrimination against women and girls. Target 2 is to end all violence against and exploitation of women and girls. And the target 3 is the elimination of forced marriage and genital mutilation. And the target 4 is to achieve value unpaid care and promote shared domestic responsibility. And the target 5 is ensure full participation in the leadership and decision making. And the target 6 is the universal access to reproductive health and rights. And 7 is equal rights to economic resources, property, ownership, and the financial service. And 7 is to promote empowerment of women through the technology. And 9 is the last one, to adopt and strengthen the policy and enforce the legislation for gender equality. All these targets are to goal to encompasses the discrimination, violence, harmful practice, unpaid work, leadership, and women and sexual health, access to economic resources, technology, and law and policy for the women. Today, actually, I'm not going to discuss all the SDG. I will discuss some of them and some points. Just I will highlight some of them. First one is the gender equality and the gender discrimination against women and girls. It is seen that although there are more women than ever in the labor market, there are still large inequalities in some regions, with women systematically denied the same working rights as men. Okay. Women are nowadays participating more labor market, but still they are lag behind. And whatever they do, it's more likely to be informal, vulnerable, and low-paying jobs. And the progress towards women's full participation in the economy actually could increase countries' GDP. And that's how the different countries are realizing this and adopting different things. If we see the percentage of female employment in 2018, we can see the Middle East is 20.5, North America 40, Europe almost 45 point like this, Arab world and Sub-Saharan Africa. We can see that actually the Arab or Middle East world, the same thing, there almost half female are participating compared to the other region of the world. And then if we see the labor force participation rate of percentage of female population age 15 plus, you can see in the world map, different country like more female are participating are this dark blue one, kind of navy blue, more than 58.2%, and the other are lighter one. Whereas Indonesia actually female labor force is 53.17, which is quite good. If we see this one, this thing, we can see whereas USA is 55%, and the other continent of the other country of the world, like some of them I want to mention you all, because In Singapore, Malaysia, almost 60, 57, something similar type. But if you see some part of the world, it's very less than 21%, like the Middle East, other part of the world. And another thing, they are in the Southeast Asia, where the country's socio-economic condition is almost similar, like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. You can see the Bangladesh, where is it's whereas the Bangladesh is higher than the India and Pakistan, where is 18 to 20%. But in Bangladesh, it's around 43%. The reason of labor force participation female in Bangladesh is one of the reasons the garments industry is booming there. And actually, female are chosen more than the male because they are less paid, and they are less paid, and they are good at this garment factory job. That's how the distribution of the labor world may be the same subcontinent, although the socio-economic condition is same, but might be different. There are gender inequality in education as well. Recently, the gender gaps in education have decreased significantly, especially in the primary education, but still gaps remain. Like eliminating gender disparities in education and training would increase the capabilities of women, likely translating to more women in the labor force and leadership. If we can see the adult literacy in the country, low-income country, the gap is more. In the lower middle-income country, it's almost same like the low-income, but a bit better. And the upper middle-income country, the gap is reduced. So with the country's income, actually the literacy has some impact. It improved. And then this bar chart is showing the children who are out of school, primary school. And then if we can see the world, female are still leaving the primary education more than the male child. And if we see the region wise, we can see the sub-Saharan Africa, they have the female more leaving the primary education. And then another one is the Middle East and North African countries, and also Arab world. Okay. And the East Asia Pacific region also have this. Whereas the North America and Europe and Central Asia, the primary education is similar, almost same thing. The second target of the SDG 5 is the end all violence against the exploitation of women and girls. So it is found that 1 in 3 women will experience sexual or physical violence in their lifetime, and mostly by an intimate partner. It has serious health consequences, and it should be never occur. Okay. If we see the form of exploitation among the detected trafficking victims in 2018, we can see among the 100% of the population trafficking, 50% is for sexual exploitation, 38% forced labor and criminal activity, and so on, forced marriage, and so on others. If we see the women and girls in the trafficking in women and girls, you can see that 72% of all trafficking survivors are women and girls, and 77% of identified female survivors are trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation. Okay, and 47 million women, more women and girls will be pushed below the poverty line due to COVID-19 for the recent situation, and that worsening the vulnerability and may increase the risk of trafficking. So next few years, the trafficking will be expecting more. And due to COVID-19, the 2/3 of the anti-trafficking workers reported seeing an increase in online recruitment by trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation online. Okay, it is found that the only 14% anti-trafficking organization reported that national referral mechanism for trafficking survivors were fully operated during the pandemic. And it is said that the women's economic inequality increased their vulnerability to trafficking. Okay, and for preventing trafficking required changing cultural norms and participate the objectify and control women and girls' bodies. Okay. And alarmingly, in some part of the world, women trafficking women, it is norm. If we see the region-wise, the victim of trafficking in person by age and group and sex by region, we can see the Western, and it is not only the less developed countries having this problem. Actually, the Western and Southern Europe also you can see there is high women trafficking. Also the South Asia, East Asia, and the Pacific, and North America, which is very high, and the South America. Whereas the girls trafficking is more in Sub-Saharan Africa and also North America. The next target is for GDP is the 5.3, which is the eliminated forced marriage and genital mutilation. Okay, so we know all over the world there are still childhood marriage is done, and forceful marriage also is there. In the Southern Asia, a girl risk of marrying in childhood has decreased 40% since 2000, but still it is 30%. Still 30% of the women aged 20 to 24 years were married before the age of 18. Actually, mostly they get married before the age of 15, before they have any voice or they can say anything or they can understand anything, or before their reproductive, they can take care of their reproductive health. And this picture showing the female genital mutilation done in all over the world, which is showing the African countries, the India, some of the Arab country, and Indonesia, Malaysia, this part of the world where genital mutilation is more common. Okay. This is a bit controversial topic, but I want to discuss it more because female genital mutilation, before I say, we need to know what it actually is. The female genital mutilation involves the partial or total removal of external female genitalia or other injury to the female genital organ for non-medical reason. Okay, it's controversial because some part of the religion actually support it, but this female genital mutilation is more severe in type 3 and type 4 mutilation, when there is more extensive mutilation is happened. And female genital mutilation is said that it is the violation of human rights of the girls and women. The practice has no health benefit for girls and women, and female genital mutilation can cause severe bleeding, health problems, health issues, even their reproductive age, and increased newborn death and other problems. It is found that the more than 200 million girls and women alive today have undergone female genital mutilation in 30 countries in Africa, in the Middle East, Asia, where female genital mutilation is actually practiced still now. And the treatment of the health complication of female genital mutilation is in 27 high prevalence countries is estimated $1.4 billion per year. which is projected to be rise $2.3 billion by 2047 if the action is not taken. So this is actually causing a burden. Why it's actually this female genital mutilation happened? It's different region of the world actually due to mix of socio-cultural factors and the thing is producing this practice. It is said that it is a social norm, the social pressure to perform to what others do and have been doing, as well as the need to be accepted socially and the fear of being rejected by the community. That's why they are doing female genital mutilation. Among the other reason, people believe that it's a necessary part of raising a girl and a way to prepare her for adulthood and marriage. And also motivated by belief that what is considered acceptable sexual behavior, it aims to ensure premarital virginity and marital fidelity, which is alarming. And they also believe that this increased marriageability in the society actually associated with cultural ideal of femininity and modesty, which include the notion that girls are clean and beautiful after removal of the body part, which is not similar like men. Another target of the SDG 5 is the universal access to reproductive health and rights of the females. The gender inequality and discrimination faced by women and girls put their health and well-being actually at risk. If you can see the graph, the bar chart, you can see the women and girls often, especially in the Eastern Asia and Southern Asia, they don't have, cannot take decision making and sexual and reproductive health and rights, which like this. And then the Central Asia, this one is quite high, 76%, but the Central Asia and the Southern Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, which is only 48%, like half of them cannot decide their sexual and reproductive health, and they don't have any right. Okay, even some part, they cannot take their decision on their own health, which is dark purple one you can see. So actually, the women and girls often face greater barriers than men and boys to accessing health information and services. And these barriers include restriction on mobility, lack of access to decision-making power, lower literacy rate, discrimination, attitude on communities and healthcare providers and others lacking. So this is actually putting their health on danger. Another SDG target is adopt and strengthen policies and enforcement legislation for gender equality. I just put few examples, like still 49 countries all over the world is lack of laws protecting women from domestic violence. And law mandates also, many countries still don't have law mandate for non-discrimination based on gender in hiring. These countries still no laws for gender in hiring, because so the people, women don't get their paid and wage enough, and they always face the discrimination. So after this, I just want to show you the impact of COVID-19 pandemic in female life. The pandemic is adding to the burden of unpaid domestic and care work and squeezing women out of the labor force, it is said. And women already spend actually 2.5 times as many hours as men on unpaid domestic and care work. And on the top of that, actually pandemic is putting more work, and they are taking out. From the picture, you can see the women work and men work, same working as a working woman. For in the pandemic also, women equal participation in decision making is crucial for COVID-19 response and recovery. But gender parity remains far off. Like they are still not only 25% of the women in the national parliament, 36% in the local government, and 28% in the managerial position. So they cannot take the decision on that time. And violence, as I mentioned before, like persist as an unacceptably high level and intensified by this pandemic. Because they are living at home, the violence become more and more. And it is said, it is very alarming that up to 10 million girls will be at risk of child marriage over the next decade as a result of this COVID-19. So some of the facts is from the UN 2021 report. When the men earn $1, female are earning 77 cents, even doing the same work, and 35% of the women have experienced physical or sexual violence from their intimate partner, and 13% of women represent just agricultural landholders, and almost 75 million women and girls alive today were married before their 18th birthday. So early childhood marriage is still very prevalent in all over the world, and only 24% of national parliamentarians were women of where parliamentarians, or 24% they are like decision makers, and 2/3 of the developing countries have achieved gender parity in primary education, which is good thing only in this. So create the future we want to see and we want to do to achieve the SDG 5. We have to see the world gender equality is not only world in the balanced way, as gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation of a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. It is vital to give women equal rights, land, property, sexual and reproductive health, and to technology and the internet. And today there are more women in the public office than ever before. But encouraging more women leaders will help to achieve greater gender equality. And ending all discrimination against women and girls is only crucial for sustainable future. It is proving that empowering women and girls helps economic growth and development, and needs to adopt and strengthen the sound policies, enforceable legislation for the promotion of gender equality and empowering all women all over the world. So I want to finish my speech with the two quotes. We cannot succeed when half of us are held back, and it isn't what we say or think that denies us, but what we do. So for our society, we need to change the concept and remove the gender discrimination. That's all. This is my acknowledgement, and thank you all.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Tania, for an interesting lecture about gender equality. I believe that the participants here are enlightened with the issue and some cases that, some shocking facts that you share here, like the FGM and so on. And for participants who want to ask question, please don't hesitate to drop your question through the link that we share in the chat box, or you can just drop it in the chat box. Okay, we will discuss it later in the Q&A discussion. But before that, let me proceed with the next lecture first from Dr. Jonel. Okay, before we start the discussion, I would like to introduce his profile first. Hello, Dr. Jonel, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, how are you, Dr. Jonel?
I'm okay. I'm excited to be the next speaker.
Sure, we are as excited to have your lecture. And yeah, we will still continue the discussion about equality and inequality. So Dr. Jonel will discuss about reduce inequality that will be delivered after this. So this is about goal number
Yes,
10.
ma'am.
Yeah, before that, let me read the profile of Dr. Jonel. So Dr. Jonel is a lecturer from West Visayas State University, the Philippines. He gained the Doctor of Philosophy in Social Science, West Visayas State University. He also gained a Master of Arts in Sociology in the Central Philippines University. Dr. Jonel Pineda is a faculty member in West Visayas State University and was previously a lecturer in John B. Lexon Maritime University. He was also a faculty member in Gumira State College. Other than that, Dr. Jonel also has some achievements such as the resource speaker in virtual in-service training for teachers, and also research presenter in Southeast Asian Conference on Academic Research at Pangasinan State University. So this is his profile. And without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Jonel to deliver the lecture. To Dr. Jonel, I give the virtual microphone to you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Just wait for a while. Can you hear me? I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you. Hello, Dr. Jonel. Are you still with us? Okay, actually you're a bit lagging.
Just wait for a while for sharing of screen.
Dr. Jonel, do you need any assistance to operate the slides? Okay, so while waiting for Dr. Jonel with his lecture, I would like to mention again the topic that he's about to deliver is about social and political marginalization of civil society groups, the Philippines experience. So somehow it is still related with the previous lecture about gender equality, but from the first lecture we talk about gender, and now we talk about social marginalization in the society. So another issue about inequality that we wish to discuss and share with you all. Okay, Dr. Jonel, we are seeing your screen now.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you clearly.
Can you already see my screen?
Yes, it's in your PowerPoint slides.
Okay. So thank you very much. First and foremost, I would like to thank the committee of the Institute Technology, CIPOLO, the ITS, for inviting me. When I received the invitation that was sent to me, I am tasked to talk about the Sustainable Development Goal number 10, and that would be reduce inequalities. Of course, when I received that invitation, the first thing that came up in my mind would be the topics that I need to discuss. And this is very timely and relevant because presently I am conducting research about the civil society groups, the political and the social marginalization, in particular here in my country. Still, am I audible, ma'am? Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Jonel, but could you please share in the full screen mode?
Yes, ma'am. Wait.
Okay, thank you. You may continue.
Okay, ma'am. This is already the full. Okay. Can you see now the full screen of my PowerPoint? Hello, everybody.
Yes, you may
Okay.
continue. We can hear you clearly.
Okay. So thank you once again. So the topic, of course, that I will be discussing is about the social and the political marginalization of civil society groups, the Philippine experience. So as I have mentioned a while ago, that this is timely and relevant because we are conducting research about the civil society groups in the Philippines, in particular during the Duterte administration. And of course, this is a very good idea that despite of this pandemic, we are still free to conduct this activity and to share our insights, our expertise, not only in my country, but of course in other parts of the world. Not this well, it means that this pandemic is not all about negativity, but we still have other nationalities or other people around the world. So the next topic.
Sorry, Dr. Jonel, you are still muted.
Ano mag-next slide? Okay, so to start with, I would like to start with the definition of the civil society. Okay, so when you talk about civil society, it's a community of citizens linked by common interest and collective activity. So when we speak of civil society, these are organizations that are not associated with the government. So they are formed to provide services or to advocate certain policy. So example of these civil society organizations would include labor unions, the nonprofit organizations, churches, and other agencies. And at the present time, we have also like um, the online, what do you call that, online civil society group or the mass media. Now, I think regardless of our country, either what type of government we have, civil society groups are very important, or we always acknowledge that they are very significant in bringing change to a certain country. Now, there are actually three functions, okay, three roles of the civil society group. Okay, so the first one, as part of society. So when we talk about as part of society, these are organized groups, mainly community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, trade unions, cooperatives, religious and faith-based groups, the academia, media, and even the indigenous people. So when we talk about civil society group as part of society, I would like to emphasize here that in the theory of Emil Durkheim on his division of labor, where he compared a society like our body, which composed of different parts, and all these parts have different functions to fulfill. So society is also like composed of different parts, and I think we're composed of different institutions, and one of the best example would be the civil society. So meaning to say all of these civil society groups should fulfill their functions unless otherwise the society will become imbalanced, the society will become paralyzed, it will result to this equilibrium. So for example, maybe we are not a part of the civil society group, but maybe if we are supporters of civil society group, we give donations to civil society groups. So in order for them to fulfill the functions, we need to support them. We need to fulfill. Like for example, if you are a student, you need to fulfill your function. If you are members of the faculty, as an academic, you need to fulfill your functions. Unless otherwise, our society will result to this equilibrium. So the same, what will happen to our civil society group if they will not continue their duties or responsibilities as mandated by the law? Okay. So the other one, function or rule of the civil society group is as a kind of society. So that means when we talk about the rule of the civil society group as a kind of society, they are promoter of selected values and norms like poverty eradication, human rights, gender equity, environmental sustainability, international fair trade regimes, peace, anti-small arms and landmines, and meeting with the social goals. So what does it mean by this what do you call that kind of society where we promote? Meaning to say, we have what we call something like advocacy as part of the global citizens, you should have an advocacy. Now, how will you know that you are part of the global citizen? Number one, you have to aware of the world and has a sense of the role in it, okay? As understanding the world. Then you need to participate in communities at all levels, both in local and global community. And you have to take responsibility for his or her actions and belief. Meaning to say, you as a part of the society or you as part of the global citizen, you should have an advocacy. Whether you are a student, you should have an advocacy. You recognize diversity, you respect diversity, everyone's culture, you need to respect. And that is we sometimes think no that we are part of the postmodern thinking that we could not establish a universal standard or a common standard to all, but we need to respect individuals' opinion. Okay, so next, um, it's actually more on the partnership, collaboration, and monitoring. So one of the functions of the civil society group as the public sphere. According to this function, it is the arena for broad-based debate and institutional collaboration, partnerships and networks, guarding of public democratic spaces, monitoring government and sometimes private sector performance or self-monitoring. So in this particular role of the civil society group, it is an area of social life where we come together to discuss and identify societal problems. Like for example, in the Philippines, we have a lot of issues to be tackled. So as part of the democratic process, the government should invite the civil society group to discuss, to debate, and of course to research in partnership with this group in order for us um, to attain a certain mandate which should be represented by the whole members of the society, including the marginalized group. Okay, next. So what is the situation? So this would be the main topic that I will be talking. What is the situation or the Philippine settings when it comes to the civil society group? So the first one, according to the research and to the study, the Philippines is considered to be one of the most vibrant civil societies in Southeast Asia. So according to David Warfield, if civil society has contributed to democratization anywhere, it should be in the Philippines. According to the Social Exchange a commission, there are more than 500,000 civil society group in the Philippines. And these civil society groups, registered or not registered, are actively engaged in advocating the public's right, both social and political in nature. Like for example, if you are familiar with the EDSA People Power that was happened in 1986 and 2001, when there was people power demonstrations which led to the overthrow of the two presidents in the Philippines. And that was a very manifesting evidence of the impact of civil society group in the Philippines. Okay, so since the 1986 People Power Revolution, the government has always maintained some openness to civil society. So that means the government is always recognized the role of civil society groups. The government always emphasize the significance role of civil society group as they consider it as one of the agent of change in the Philippines. So because of that recognition by the government, if we're going to look at after the 1986 INSA People Power, like for example, during the president of Corazon Aquino, her agenda towards the civil society groups or organizations in the Philippines during her time, she restored democracy to the Philippines, and several pieces of legislations favorable to civil society development were passed soon after, including the Cooperative Code of 1990 and the Women in Development and Nation Building Act of 1992. Then, after Corazon Aquino, we have Fidel Ramos. He advanced the social reform agenda to engage in CSOs and national policy development processes. And then, during the time of Estrada, um, some civil society organizations leaders were appointed to cabinet positions. But these civil society leaders were also what I call that campaigning or stood against Estrada during the time when there were a lot of corruption issues, cronyism, nepotism, the poor economic performance, and limitations on the press freedom. So the civil society organizations also helped um, President Duterte to overthrow in the office because the civil society groups were very vigilant when it comes to political and social issues in the Philippines. And during the time of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, he came to power in 2001 with strong civil society backing. So that is because of the EDSA People Power too. But in the middle of her administration, when there were corruption issues also, electoral fraud that put her in the position, there were also civil society groups that really stood up against Gloria Arroyo. And during the time of President Aquino, here is the time where there marked an improvements in the openness of the government to CSOs based on constructive engagement, both as watchdog to help ensure that government policies and guidelines are followed, and support groups helping to implement government projects and deliver public services. So these were the rule of the civil society groups in the Philippines after the EDSA People Power until the Aquino administration. Now, but of course, the the civil society groups would of course, as we have seen, the role from after the EDSA People Power one and until the Aquino administration. So we have here the legal frameworks of civil society organization. So that is actually mandated in our constitution. So the first one, we have the Article 2, Section 3, which states that the state shall encourage non-governmental community-based or sector organizations that promote the welfare of the nation. So it is emphasized in the Constitution to empower the civil society groups in our country. Then in Article 8, Section 15, the state shall respect the role of independent peoples, organizations to enable the people to pursue and protect within the democratic framework their legitimate and collective interest and aspirations through peaceful and lawful means. And the other one is in Article 13, Section 16, the right of the people and their organizations to effective and reasonable participation at all levels of social, political, and economic decision making shall not be abridged. So the state shall, by law, facilitate the establishment of adequate consultation mechanism. So in the decision-making process or in the political process, we need to encourage the civil society group that they should participate in the government decision-making process and, of course, in the political and social agenda. So, however, the social and political conditions of the civil society organizations groups may depend on the inclinations of those in power. This scenario changed when President Rodrigo Duterte was elected as the 16th president of the Philippines. So there was something changes happened in the environment or climate of the civil society groups in the Philippines. So let's discuss one by one what would be the socio and the political reality experienced by the civil society groups in the Philippines. Now, these experiences were actually part of the result of our study, but this study was not yet published. We're still working with it. But as I have mentioned, this is timely and relevant because my lecture today would really reflect on the personal experiences of the civil society groups or organizations in our country. So the first one, the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, the suspicious intent of the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 that the Philippine Congress passed. The Duterte's administration has insidiously made it difficult for civil society organizations to engage and influence the country's development. That is according to the Act Alliance in 2020. Now, there were actually some of the statements, like for example, coming from University of the Philippines Executive Committee, that this law is a threat to the freedom of expression and the freedom of association to the Filipino people, especially the civil society group, because some of the provisions would be, according to them, against the Bill of Rights. So in that cases, some of the civil society groups were being marginalized, and they were afraid to express their opinion. They're afraid to what they call that, to critique the government. They're afraid to to say something negative against the government because of the Anti-Terrorism Act. And then in the recent reports of the CSO Sustainability Index for 2018 and 2019 noted that the state harassment of these organizations, as well as human rights defenders, activists, and lawyers representing marginalized groups increased in 2018. And extrajudicial killings likewise remain to a grave concern. So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I'm sure if you're watching in the CNN, if you're watching in the YouTube, and if you're watching in some other media, not only in the Philippines, in Asia, but in other parts of the world, I think this is very, what they call that, a controversial, the drugs, the war on drugs by President Duterte. Because according to the PDEA, the Philippine Drugs Enforcement Agency, that was in July 16, 2018, there were already 5,050 killed on the war on drugs by Duterte administration. That was only in 2018, but this data is not updated until this time. So it might be, it would increase another hundreds. So that's very alarming on the part of the Filipino people, because there were a lot of victims and killed because of this bloody implementations on the war on drugs by the Duterte administration. And then, according to human rights, the members of killings would, what do you call it? The human rights defender or advocacy of the human rights, there were actually 20,000 killed according to the data. So that's very alarming. Now, so the other one is the CSO advocacy also declined due to the continuing verbal attacks by President Duterte against critics of his policies and the increasing challenge of lobbying for key policy reforms. So like for example, Senator Dilemma, because she was the Secretary of Justice during that time, and he led the Senate investigation on this drug war. So he was actually in person. And then the other opposition leaders who are very, what do you call it, vocal against President Duterte, they were actually silenced or undermined. And then even the lawyers who were taking care or backing these cases were also attacked by the administration. So it's one way that the civil society group in the Philippines were being marginalized by this administration. Then the other one is the practice of red tagging human rights defenders, lawyers, activists, and critics of the Duterte government became widespread. So some of the students, especially in our university, because I am teaching in a public school, students from University of the Philippines and other big universities, they were afraid because they were listed as either communist or the terrorist or members of the terrorist group. And in some other cases, the police officer will just go from your house and go to another house, and they will give some form. You just have to list all your names, and even these people do not know what's the purpose of that. So it might be this would be a threat to their life. Okay. Then the other one, the Commission on Human Rights has limited authority in a small staff and budget. Now, this is according to the budget by the Commission on Higher Education, where in 2018, the House gave only 1,000 peso for this agency, for the Commission on Human Rights. So because of that, this limited budget, the Commission on Human Rights were crippled. They could not function well. They could not defend the victims of human rights violations or any other complaint that would serve justice to the Filipino people. So the other one is the mainstream political opposition what do you call that, is weakened. Okay, so because of the attack by President Duterte. Okay, the other one, what do you call that, the most likely the attack, the bad words, and the target of the President Duterte would result that this political opposition would be in silence because they're afraid that if they were going to speak against the administration, they will be it would be threat. Okay, they will be threatened by this administration. And the other one is the coercive institutions as police um, have been at the forefront of implementing social policies. So, like for example, the war on drugs, the police officer would always be the front liner, the front runner. I mean, of this kind of bloody uh, policy by President Duterte. So the police were empowered. They were even told by President Duterte to kill if they would take revenge during the operation. So by that words, as he encouraged the police to kill, so the police officers would be empowered to do so. And then, so despite of this, what do you call that? Despite of this situations, the fragile institutions, it weakened the democratic process, especially the civil society group. So what were the coping mechanism of the civil society group? So this is actually part of the democratic expressions of the civil society group. So the first that coping, according to the interview that we conducted with this civil society group leaders, they had what we call the digital innovation. So this is the emergence of digital governance cultures in the Philippines. So the rise of troll armies, for example, where the civil society groups used a different social media platform where they could express their views, their opinion. They could critique the government, and uh, even though they were marginalized, but still they are using this social media to at least express what they have experienced during this administration. Then the other one is the electoral resilience. Okay, it's not only served as a mechanism for peaceful transfer of power, but it has in local culture been celebrated as a ritualized gamble. So what does it mean? Of course, in 2022, this May, we are facing national elections. So this would be very critical on the part of the Filipino people who will win this 2022 election, because that would validate if the people are still supporting the present administration or not. So in a democratic process, election is very significant because this would help the Filipino people to decide and to either to change the system or the present administration. And then alliance support, okay, a group of people who have agreed to work together because of shared interest or aim. So as I have discussed earlier, that these society groups were marginalized, but in order for them to have strength, they would create alliances with other groups, like for example, religion or any church or faith organization, because they believe that when they unite, there is strength, there will be power. So despite of this threat to them, some of these civil society groups continue to pursue their objectives. They continue to pursue their agenda, and then they stand against the government, the oppressive government. Okay, so this is the topic. Okay, so I just want to end my presentation with this from Joe Biden. According to him, No fundamental social change occurs merely because government acts. It's because civil society, the conscience of a country, begins to rise up and demand, demand, and change. So if we want to bring change to our government, we have to demand for a change. We will support the civil society group to reduce inequalities so that everybody would have voice in the government. If the marginalized group will be empowered to bring change, not just to Philippines, but to all countries in the whole world. So thank you very much. I think we will reserve the remaining time for the question and answer. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank
That's
you,
all.
Dr. Jonel, for sharing with us about the civil society group in terms of social and political marginalization. Uh, so this is related to the still related to the equality in the community. So the first lecture we discussed about gender equality, and now we discuss about equality in the social community groups. Okay, and these points are crucial to decide how the future will be, what kind of norms and values that will be implemented in the society. So now in the Q&A session, I would like to invite all participants who has anything in mind. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the chat box, or you can use the raise hand feature, or you can put your question in the link so that we can discuss together with our experts today. And meanwhile, we already received several questions in the Q&A link. So I would like to mention the first question delivered to Dr. Tania Islam about the first topic, the gender equality. The question is from Queenie Fijo from Surigao State College of Technology, the Philippines. And the question is, what is the difference between gender equality, and women's empowerment? To Dr. Tania, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think the two things is different. Women empowering is it's not women are not power, but it's like making the women more empowered with all the other things we can do. Like, but gender inequality is totally different thing. Like in our society, the gender among the male, female, or men, women, the gender is not equal. It's not equal, right? Although it's created by the society, by our culture, but it's different thing. Like we are getting the women have less right, less things like which is not in the society. It's not equal thing. But empowering women is something different. But by empowering the women, we can actually make it like we can close the gap and we can slowly go towards the gender equality, I think. Hope it's you got my answer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tanya. So yeah, the question is the difference between gender equity, gender equality, and women's empowerment. So maybe slightly different, but they are all related, right?
Yes, because by empowering women, actually we can close this gap inequality in our society.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tanya. And I would like to confirm with Queenie Fijo, who asked the question. Does it answer your question, or if you need to further discuss about this topic, please?
okay na. It's okay na. Okay. Thank you, Mom.
Okay. Thank you, Queenie and Dr. Tania, to discuss about this matter. And now, still related with the first question, actually, we have another question from Pratama from Universitas Gajah Mada. So the question is, okay, it's a bit long, so let me read the question. When we are talking about gender division, mostly it will be talking about binary gender option, either male or female. Meanwhile, the concept of gender is currently developed beyond those two gender identities. For example, we knew about transgender, which begins to gain recognition in several countries. However, the SDGs of gender equality remains talking about women empowerment, while the transgender one, for instance, are considered our more disadvantaged group, or using Dr. Jonel's term like marginalized. So do you think the discourse of gender in that SDG should be developed as well by not only talking about female, women, or girl? Okay, what do you think, Dr. Tanya?
Actually, it's a very important question. When I was creating slides, actually I wanted to put the transgender and what next. There was the last slide for me. The what next. Later I realized it's too much, and then putting the transgender, those things will be a bit confusing for the student. That's why actually I took it out. But to be honest, like we are in the second behind the man, like the women issue, and the transgender issue is terrible at this moment. Like I can remember a few weeks ago, there was news in my country, like the first transgender in the as a news reader. So this is how they don't have any opportunities, nothing in there. Actually, SDG should focus, to be honest. But and even they don't have any right for education, nothing is there for them. Slowly, but they're on the line, and I assume there will be later this issue will come in the SDG, but maybe I'm not sure until 2030 they will take it or not. But slowly after 2030, maybe the next like Millennium Development Goal, the SDG, maybe the next one will be issuing more because nowadays it's getting more and more. Agenda, the other issues are getting more. But actually, we need to fight for their rights as well.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Tania. Yeah, so actually, if we discuss about gender equality, I think Dr. Tania also agreed that it also include like the transgender other than men and women. But yeah, first in this session, we would like to introduce these two binaries first. And actually, if we extend further the discussion, the transgender also included, right? Yeah, and also, yeah, the discourse of gender in the SDG number 5. Yeah, so the targets still talk about like women empowerment, but yeah, maybe in the future this will be developed as well to cover all kind of genders. Okay, and still related to this point, I have another question from Diane Grace Nuenai from the Philippines. He asks, is gender equality also concern for men? Okay, Dr. Tania, please.
Maybe because sometimes people say it's very limited. Like we say, women violence is more, but sometimes we can see men are also like men are also victims, but it's very less. So I don't think it's for this time point we are far behind. That's why we need to more focus on that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Tanya. So also, mostly we discuss about women empowerment, but actually by promoting women empowerment and gender equality, it's also benefits men because like the traditional gender roles, it's not only like disadvantages for women, but also for men actually. Yeah, so by
Yes,
although we're discussing about women empowerment, it also beneficial for both men and women.
yes, because it's believe he for she and she for he. And it's not only the empowering, it has some economical impact, other impact. Once the people understand this, maybe gradually the disparity will be less.
Yes, right. Thank you so much, Dr. Tanya, for answering the question. Yeah, and also to participants, we still have several minutes for the Q&A session. So if you have any question, you can just drop it in the chat box, either to Dr. Tanya or to Dr. Jonel about the society marginalization. And also, I would like to deliver my question to Dr. Jonel about the social community organizations or CSO. Yeah, Dr. Janel. So, as you mentioned that the CSO is a crucial point and has roles in monitoring and deciding what kind of values that is implemented in the society. So yeah, maybe the students and the participants here needs to be aware about this issue as well. So related to that, I would like to ask what kind of activities that can be implemented by students related to these goals, to goal number 10 about reduce inequalities in terms of the community groups. Okay, so maybe you can share if in your institution, what kind of activities that could be implemented.
Uh, yes, actually, in the Philippines, we have the National Youth Commission that is actually intended for the empowerment of the youth. And then we have the youth leaders, which is mandated by the law to be the voice of the government. So if you are students, I think you could help them to be able to realize the activities or the laws mandated to empower the youth. And actually, in the Philippines, for example, during the EDSA People Power, there were a lot of youths were actually part of that EDSA People Power who helped the Filipinos, the civil society group, to overthrow the government. So in the Philippines, we have a lot of civil society groups, uh, not only religious or businessman, media, or the church, but we have also youth. As a matter of fact, youth in the Philippines are very empowered. Like what is happening today in our country, a lot of youth volunteer movements are campaigning for their president. They are organizing rally. They are mobilizing people. They campaign house to house just to help their candidate to win this 2022 elections. So in that case, I think you have in your own very simple way, you have already the contribution in a democratic process or as part of political agenda of the Philippines, of our country. And not only that, of course, that would also serve as the basis or the baseline experience of other countries in the world, not only in the Philippines, but in other countries.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jonel. So as Dr. Jonel said, also the issue mentions might seem like more complicated in the national area, but actually youth also have voice. They can contribute related to this issue. You can help the government through your own action. Even if it is a simple action, you can contribute to reduce inequalities.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jonel. So I would like to invite again participants. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the chat box, or you can also use the raise hand feature if you want to ask directly. Okay, so I have one more question from the participants regarding to the reality that inequality in the community exists. Do you think that religious value also shapes this inequality? So maybe Dr. Tanya can answer in terms of gender inequality, and also Dr. Jonel can answer in terms of the social inequality. Okay, maybe we can start with Dr. Tanya.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Okay, so the question is the reality that inequality still exists in our society. Do you think that religious values also shapes this construction, like the inequality that exists in the community?
The value part is not clear to me.
Okay, Dr. Tanya. So as inequality still exists, maybe. Okay, sorry about that. The question is about the inequality in our society, and do you think that religious value also shapes gender inequality? How does religious values contribute to the construction of gender inequality?
You are meaning the religious value, right?
Yeah.
Of course, in our society, in the gender, every aspect of our life, religious values varies, and it has great impact because the religious values and ideologies are the one which is actually motivating us, creating the norms and the other practice in us, and making this gender equality and inequality, the both, I believe. Because some right and some of the reason we are behind, some of the part of the world, the reason we are coming forward. So it's a bit controversial, I think. But it has great impact, the religious one.
Yeah, right, Dr. Tanya. So maybe, yeah, as Dr. Tanya mentioned that gender is a social construction. So one of the factors is also religious values that construct the idea about gender. Yeah. So, but I think it's also how the community perceive the values, right? Like it also affect, like, this is the religious values, but how the people implement and perceive the values is also influence the construction. So not merely about the value, but also how the people perceive it. Yeah, what do you think, Dr. Tanya?
Yes, people. I thought the question is what the religious effect. Actually, it's everything in our life, in our society, the religious belief and our culture, our environment, our economic, political, every aspect of the society actually has impact. Even the individual person and the family also has impact in this value, in the gender equality or inequality. because that's how the gender discrimination arise. And I think the values is changeable, and that's how, like, if we change ourselves is the starting point. We can change the family. From our family, we can change the society. We can change all the values and other things to change, and also to overcome this issue. But it's religious don't have the maybe the bad that way, but we can overcome that way. Because if religious is a, I just want to give small example. Sometimes people think like, okay, religious have some great impact, like the Muslim people in Arab, they are lag behind because of the religion. But if you see in the Indonesia, Malaysia, with the same religion, women are more upfront in the labor, in the education, every aspect. So I think it's not only the religion, the culture and the other things that is pulling them behind. And we can overcome that, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tanya. So even with those kind of religious values, it is also about how we perceive it. And like Dr. Tanya said, you can start with yourself, even if you don't have like as much power to influence the society, but you can start from yourself, how you perceive about these issues. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tanya. And yeah, related to that, also the question to Dr. Jonel, how does that religious values shapes the social community groups? Okay, and yeah, maybe if I can merge with the other question, I also have the other question related to the religion from Ivi Esparago, from also Surigao State College of Technology, Department of Arts and Sciences. The question is, in Article 2, Declaration of Principles, Section 6, the Constitution states the separation of church and state shall be inviolable. What can you say about the involvement of church on today's coming election? To Sir Jonel, maybe you can answer this question.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I think that would remain an issue in the Philippines, the separation of the church and the state. Even until today, Filipino people are fighting of how we are going to interpret that mandate in the Constitution about the separation of the church and the state, because a lot of religious leaders are backing or campaigning and publicly pronouncing their a candidate for this coming 22 elections. In my own opinion, I think religious leaders, as part or members of the Filipino citizen, they have what we call mandate, or they would have if they have the desire to really change our country. I think we are giving us or leading us to choose who will be the best candidate or leader to run our country. But the only thing is that they could not run in public office. Priest or pastor or imam are not allowed to run in the public office if they are religious leaders, but they are allowed to help us to decide and to influence us to decide who will be the best leader to decide to be voted this 22 elections. The religion is considered to be the conscience of our society. So I think as part of their moral obligations, I think we will also acknowledge their duty to help us to decide and to intervene on the political issues or any issues related to our country.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jonel, for the answer. So yeah, actually it's the final question from the discussion today. So thank you to all participants who have shared their ideas and questions with us and bring about the issues in the table so that we can discuss together with our experts today. And yeah, so to conclude the discussion today, if I may point out some points from our speakers. So first, from the lecture by Dr. Tania, we discuss about gender as a social and cultural construct. So actually we differentiate between sex and gender. So sex is biological, whilst gender is sociological and shaped by the social construct. So sex is decided by the nature, how they are born, but gender is related to the nurture, how they are raised and how the values are constructed by the people. And also this is affected some issues in the society, like for example the practice of female genital mutilation that is still a major issue in today's society, and also the gender gap. So maybe all people have to realize about this construction because this is subtle and partly unconscious. So maybe you need to be aware about this issue. Okay, so that was some points from Dr. Tanya, and the other lecture from Dr. Jonel about social and political marginalization of civil social group in the Philippines experience. So we discuss about civil society organizations, which includes labor unions, NGOs, church, and youth communities. So the civil society organization has important roles such as collaboration and monitoring the values in the society. They are the social promoter of values that works in the community. So they have a voice in affecting what kind of values that works in the community. And Dr. Jonel also quote from Joe Biden that in civil society, the change occurs merely not because government acts, but also the conscience of a society begins to raise up, demand, and change. So yeah, those are the points discussed in the today's session. And once again, I would like to thank all participants for your active participation, and also to our speakers today for the excellent lecture. And other than that, I would like to remind all participants that the first assignment of TWIL submission, or that's what I learned, should be submitted by March 18, 2022. And the second will should be submitted by March 31st, 2022. So the worksheet can be found through the link bit.ly/form_twill, or you can see also in the chat box. So be remembered about the assignments. And okay, before we end the session today, we would like to present the certificate awarding for our speakers today. Okay, so the first certificate is presented to our first speaker, Dr. Tania Islam from University of Malaya. Okay, so we are showing the certificate to Dr. Tania.
I can't see it, but thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I think our connection a bit unstable, but this is the certificate presented to Dr. Tania. Thank you for the lecture today. And next, the certificate presented to Dr. Jonel Lanada. Okay, once again, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jonel.
Thank you very
And
much.
yeah, thank you, Dr. Tania, for sharing your valuable insight with us today. I believe that everyone here has got more insight about gender construction and marginalization in the society. And I believe that we all agree that these topics are crucial and that everyone needs to be aware so that we can support sustainable development in the global community. Now, before we end our lecture today, I would like to invite all participants as well as our honorable speaker to take a group photo. So please kindly open your camera and get yourself ready. And we will take the documentation for today's session. Okay, kindly turn on your camera and get yourself ready. We have 3 slides, so please keep smiling until the end because we don't know in which slide you are. Okay, so I will start taking the photo. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, for the next slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, the last one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we finished the group photo. And for participants, before we end, I would also remind you about the feedback form. So please share your feedback after joining the session through the link that we share in the Zoom chat room. We want to remind you that the participants who will get the stamps and certificates are those who come on time, join this event until the end, and also fill the feedback form. And for the next week, we will hold other sessions of GLS. On Tuesday, we will discuss about goal number 6 and goal number 14, as you can see on the screen, that will be delivered by Associate Professor Lai Sun On and Professor Ernesto Del Rosario, that will be conducted on Tuesday, March 15 at 3:30 p.m. You can see the Zoom meeting link in the screen. And next, we also have GLS on Wednesday about goal number 7 and goal number 13, delivered by Dr. Sompon Chuai Are, Professor Subimal Ghosh, and Dr. Shiba Chenoli, that will be conducted on Wednesday, March 16, 3:30 p.m. in Indonesia time. And lastly, we will have another session on Thursday about goal number 9 and also goal number 11 with Professor Kenji Mishima, Dr. Maria Rosario Garcia, and Miss Raquel Laiko. So we have more sessions ahead, and I hope that we will see you again in the upcoming series. Thank you again to our honorable speakers and all participants for the attention and cooperation. We hope to see you again in next agenda. Don't forget to follow our social media on Instagram at ITS International Office and Facebook ITS International Office to keep updated to our programs. So see you again next week. Thank you again very much. I hope you stay safe.
Thank you for invitation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Tanya.
Thank you, Dr.
Dr. Jonel.
Jonel, thank you. Thank you all the participants to come here. We hope you can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all participants. We hope that you can attend our GLS and SDGs on next week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Wednesday. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again very much, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Tanya and Dr. Jonel, for sharing with us. It's really nice to have you today.
Yes, I will